That's for
Should
your
I try it
mom
on?
or for you?
Yeah. No, for my mom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Past the Paddock. This is episode 5, and we're finally over our depressions. We've coped, we've gotten over it. We've read one too many books, according to Cam, who's read like, what, 6 books in this week? 5 books
yeah.
in this week. So if that doesn't show you where we're at without F1, I don't know what does. But we kind of wanted to get started just debriefing the 2024 season. You know, we're over the end now, and we want to relive it. We want to have that sudden nostalgia. So we just kind of wanted to go over every race of the season and talk about everything that we found momentous or eventful. Where do you guys want to start? From the beginning of this little story?
Bahrain and Saudi Arabia were kind of the same. Red Bull 1-2, Max Verstappen dominance, as we all know. And then it kind of changed in Australia. Carlos got his little good luck, maybe, with his appendicitis. He had his surgery. That was really funny.
It made him lighter. Trust, it made him lighter.
No, girl, it did. It did. Yeah, so Carlos got his 3rd win. Let's round of applause for that. Max retired during the first few laps. Why did I forget about that? And then when Gabby put that, I was like, hey.
I remember that happening. I was cheering with joy, and I should not have been. But after the first 2 races,
I was fully crashing out.
No, for the first 2 races, I was like, we're destined to have another 2023. We are destined for another 2023 season. And so then when he was out, I was like, oh dang, it's gonna get spicy.
Okay.
It was the first race my roommate was watching, and I was like, "You can't watch with me the next race because
no.
I was like, you can't watch the next race because if it happens again, I'm gonna crash out." I was
You're
like,
not invited.
I like barely watched the rest of the race. I was like so depressed. I was like so drama for no reason.
You were
Please.
like, don't talk to me. You're like sitting there,
Don't
your
talk to
roommate's
me.
like, it's okay, Gabby. You're like, no, don't
You're
touch
like, no,
me.
the race finished with the virtual safety car after George crashed on the final lap. That was like
George Russell move.
George has consistently crashed a lot this year.
After Australia was Japan and China, and we were back to Max winning. It was in China, it was Red Bull's 100th pole position, and then lots of penalties and 2 safety cars. And Zhou got to celebrate being the first Chinese F1 driver. And that was about it for those 2.
That was so beautiful. I really loved that for him.
no.
It was so emotional. I didn't expect him to do that, and everybody was cheering for him. I was like, right. So I was not expecting to be emotional today.
No,
He
I
had
know.
his own little spot too.
I know. It was the
That's-
cutest.
One
So
of the
cute.
best parts of the whole season, I think.
It was
yeah,
so
for sure.
sweet. It was so
I
sweet.
didn't even know. For some reason, I don't know. I just did not know that he was the first Chinese F1 driver, but he
No, me
was. And I did not know that. I like that fact just came to light then, and that's very impressive. That's a good. I'm just glad they shine light on it.
Deserves that. And there's a lot of people who live in China. A lot of people. China has a massive population, so it's nice that they have representation just like everyone else does, because that's kind of the beauty of the sport, is it brings everyone together internationally. And so when you have everyone being included, it's just really cool to see. So I was really happy about that for sure.
Agreed.
Totally agree.
And then do we want to talk about Miami?
Of course.
Oh my
Kind of
god,
landmark.
Miami. It's beautiful. Lando got his first win, and I have a video, which I posted on Twitter, but I also just have it, of me gutturally shrieking when Lando won. It was like a dad, like a white dad, when his favorite football player wins or like a touchdown. That was me. But when Lando won, I was like, yes! My dad was like in the corner, really weirded out by it. But it was so cool to see just all of that, and then the safety car situation and how Lando did capitalize on that, as talked about. But also, I thought what upset me about that entire race was that people really discounted that win for him because of that safety car.
So true.
I can appreciate Max in the press conference after the race when he was like, if my mom had balls, she would be my dad.
Oh.
All that statement and everything.
God.
And just backing Lando, being like, no, he got his win. He deserved it and everything. And like just in a way being like a driver's driver in a sense of like being a girl's girl.
Really.
It was necessary for him to say something. I'm glad he did say something about it because it was, let's be real, a lot of the people that were discounting it are probably more going to be like, not Max fans, but like people who aren't McLaren fans, and majority of them probably prefer that. And them Max saying something about it was so important because people discounting a win for a safety car, it makes no sense. It's not like it was his fault. The safety car happened because of a crash, and his team and himself like strategized over it, and they just had the upper hand. That's how racing works sometimes. People discounting his win are just absolutely crazy. I just do not understand it. He won fair and square. Nothing, I don't know. There's nothing to discount it for. So
Yeah, and like, even though it was a situation where there was let's say crutch or a handicap, it doesn't mean that the win was any less valid. His pace in that race was crazy good. He was doing really,
so
really
good.
well. And it was also a great turning point for McLaren in the season. Even though it was early on, it came through and it started setting the precedent for McLaren and the constructors and how fast their car was. And it was starting to put them up on that post of being the fastest car on the grid. And so then we move on to Emilia Romagna and all that, and that was just crazy. It was close. It was a little
Very
too
close.
close, almost.
That's like the
some
one
might
word to
say.
describe it, honestly.
Does anyone else want to talk about what they thought about that race?
Well, this was a very stressful weekend, honestly. So stressful, but I think this was a good race. I would say that McLaren had the fastest car here, but I would say that Max won. It was very close, 7/10. This is where it's kind of like, oh, well, Lando won in Miami, but that was probably just like a one-time thing, whatever. Like, he's going to go win again. And then Max won, but look how close the McLarens are. And what Lando and Charles, P2 and P3, and it was only like 8 seconds between all of them. It's never really hasn't been that close. We're not used to that yet at this time in the season. So this was like a turning point, one of the turning points, foreshadowing in the later season how close it actually gets, and kind of have to buckle up a little bit because it gets so crazy this entire
It
season.
does.
Past this specifically.
And then we
And
move into
after that-
Monaco.
which is like very low race compared to the previous
Oh
one.
gosh, yeah.
Like,
It was
Compared
just
to like
pole to
Miami,
win, pole to win.
because you're going to Miami to Imola, both crazy weekends, going right to Monaco. Of course, Charles wins this race, breaking
I
the
honestly
Monaco
think the
curse.
commentary was the most interesting part of the whole race at
So
the very
true.
end.
Well,
Yeah.
the fact that there were no overtakes in the top 10, only 4 overtakes overall in the entire race. What?
It was
And
basically
it's like
NASCAR.
it's basically NASCAR. Like, you might as well just be watching NASCAR. The cars have gotten so big. In 2026, those cars better be half the size, or else I can't watch the Monaco race, because the Monaco race is going to be there until 2031. I can't
Yeah.
do that. I
'Cause
cannot
the
watch
cars
another race
barely
like that.
fit on the track. How are they supposed to overtake? There's not room for two
Yeah.
cars side by side.
There's literally nothing.
Exactly. But I mean, Charles won, and I was like, I don't even care if the race is boring. End of the race where he was celebrating made up for it for
It
me,
was so
No.
because
cute.
I was rooting for him so much for this race.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I
And
think
after that
that
lull-
win, when Charles jumped into the water, reminded me so much of when Daniel Ricciardo celebrated his
Oh,
Monaco
yes.
win and like fell forward in the pool. I had like PTSD, so
Yeah.
it was terrible.
Agreed.
No, yeah, I agree with that one.
I think Canada made up for the boringness of Monaco though.
For sure.
Yeah.
Canada was
That was-
wild.
It was very
wild.
eventful.
Oh my goodness.
We had a
That was-
contract
that was the
extension for
stressful
Yuki.
race.
That's where Yuki was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be in RB next season." But now, is he? We
Well, listen to
we
our episode
that's-
about the Red Bull seat.
yes, we do have an episode about that. So if you want to know more about the Red Bull seat,
And the
Go on to another
prospects of
episode.
that, which is
Yes.
incredibly stressful, and we all have strong opinions.
this is where in Canada, this is where George and Max in qualifying, they set the exact time. I don't really know. There was a lot of, I mean, messy race. There was 2 safety cars. One was with Carlos and Alex crashing. Ando kind of got bad luck, you could say, from the safety car, because it was, I don't really know what happened. I just know, if anybody else remembers, he had bad luck with the safety car.
I
Anybody else
think it
wanna?
got deployed after he already passed it or something along the lines. Like, I think he
Oh.
ended up in front of it. and
I
so
think
he
that's what it
wasn't-
was.
So
Yeah.
while Max and them were able to pit, I don't think he was able to or
Mhm.
something like that. So,
Yeah.
and it was also raining.
So yeah, it was messy. Max won again, of course, but this is kind of what that Checo, the doubts just kept seeping in and like heavily at this race because he just had like I don't know how many Q1 exits he's had so far up until Canada, but he had yet another one in Canada. And there were a lot of articles coming out, a lot of like things like comments, posts talking about is Checo really going to be in Red Bull next year? And that's just kind of where the kind of came back in after, last
I
season.
feel like ever since Canada, that whole question has just been on everyone's minds. Like, I know it's just been like, what does this mean? Because clearly the car is fast enough because Max is doing really, really well. So the car is fast enough. It's the driver problem then at that
Yep.
point. It is a driver
Mhm.
problem. And
Mhm.
whether that be that he's not used to this car, whether that be that he's not used to this car or a deal, maybe he had different upgrades. I don't know. I've
Mhm.
heard people say that they felt like the car was more fit to Max's preferences rather than Checo's. But I'm like, they have two cars. They can fit those preferences here and there, small tweaks, things like that. They have time between races to do that. Well, not between races, but like at the track, they have to do that. So, what is the issue? And then that question just carried all the way through Spain, which is where we're headed next in the season.
Yes.
Lando had pole and then immediately lost pole in turn one. Um, he went to P3, and then that continued like the whole about Lando not being able to hold a pole position. And then passed George and then won the race like he does. He passes and he holds that lead as always. But then Lewis got his first podium of the 2024 season, which was really, really cool. I think it was like a good moment for him because he hadn't been doing that well. Well, like Hamilton levels of well for a few races now. So it was nice for have him in there and in the mix and doing something right, clearly,
Yep.
with the car.
Mercedes, I felt like this kind of we're in podium. I mean, they did have a good start to the first half of the season. It is kind of good to see, especially for Mercedes fans, to kind of see it's not all lost. No, so that was positive. So
For sure. And then we move into Austria.
Austria,
That was a
Austria, Austria,
nightmare.
Austria. It was like my nightmare race. Um, I
Yeah.
hated this so much. I like turned the TV off and I just like contemplated it for like the next hour, staring at my wall. So I don't know.
Can I
It's tough.
add? I feel like yeah, it was the Austria race where I feel like the whole Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, like head to head, the whole talk kind of released. Like that's where we saw the first like not
That's
like
when I
fight, but like that's when it kind of started, whole like battle together.
Mhm.
That's when
Not
you
it.
got all the "I love you, I'm sorry" edits on
Bro.
TikTok between the two of them.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
weird
There,
thing
it was.
like everything that happened, I feel like Max and Lando are very good at keeping on track action on track. And of course,
Mhm.
there's like rage towards the other person after a race, after something like what happened in Austria. But overall, they get off the track and they understand each other. They understand that they're both fighting. They're trying to put up a good fight, which is good for racing. And they move on with their lives and they're still friends. And clearly, they still like each other because they still defend one another and hang out and do things and want to be around each other. So clearly, it doesn't really matter. And the dramatization of this line of racing and then personal life being melded. Like there are things like Mercedes, which obviously caused a real rift in friendship. And there are things like Max and Lando who are very good at separating those two things. And so
Mhm.
the entire internet being like, no, they're going to stop being friends is not what's going to happen. They're going to be fine.
They're gonna have battles because if Lando's finally getting the car he needs, he's gonna get up there. He's gonna be aggressive. He wants it. Max wants to defend it. It's literally fun.
They both
That's like
want
this
it
is what
just as bad.
this
It's
they
racing.
Mhm.
race. It's normal. The all like the edits and all like the in the stupid like FIA award ceremony like the whole. Oh my gosh, I was like,
It was
guys,
like a Drive to Survive trailer. I was like, guys,
it's not that big of a deal because this
be so
happens.
for
People crash. I mean, I interview that Max had. I sent it to you guys, I think, but he was like defending Lando. He's okay. Well, he got interviewed like 20 like after the race. Of course, he's gonna like say stuff It's heated. Of course, Max is going to say so. This happens. This has happened before. Like, people were acting as drivers have never gotten heated after an incident. They're going to be friends. They literally talked about, like, doing a swap. So I think they're okay. Like, it's how it works. This is Formula One. We're going to fight. Who
Where
cares?
are the good questions these days? Like the media, who are these reporters that get to be in Formula One, like in the pens? Because what I'm telling you right now is that there are at least 100 normal fans would have better questions to ask these people about the race than. So, what do you think you're going to do different going into next week? And how do you feel about the race today?
And
I feel
also,
like they ask these like awful questions. They can like manipulate it and be like, "Oh, look
Yeah.
what they said." Like I feel like they ask the dumbest questions on purpose to, like Lando said, the media can change it and will change it. Like,
Yeah.
know.
Post-race interviews have been like terrible lately.
Oh,
It's
so
been
bad.
so bad.
Yeah.
Can we not come up with something that isn't like the same questions we ask every race weekend?
Yeah, how about
Like,
you ask them
we-
something other than how they felt about the race or a battle,
No,
or if they're going to
literally.
talk to somebody afterwards? Like,
Exactly.
why do you care? I don't understand why reporters now, it feels like reporters now care more about the personal lives of these drivers rather than they care about what happened on track. Like, let's talk about what happened. You were
Yeah.
watching, hopefully, if you're going to report on the race, so let's find out about what happened. Because I can tell you right now,
Yes.
there are some questions that I don't think the drivers would mind answering questions if they didn't ask the same thing every single race weekend
Yeah.
for 20 plus race weekends in a row. It's annoying. We then get on a little plane and we fly over to England, where we arrive at
Yes.
Silverstone,
Mhm.
which is
that was a
unironically
great
one of my favorite races every single year. I love the Silverstone track. I think it's so fun.
I loved Silverstone this year. I think Lewis winning was like just so good. Like it was so overdue. And I feel like other than that, there was not a crazy amount that happened. Like there wasn't any super insane that happened during that race. Obviously, this was a race that like Max's car really looked as great. It was okay, but it wasn't like amazing. But yeah, I think the race was kind of on the boring side. I don't want to say like boring because it was a bad race.
Yeah.
It just didn't have anything crazy happen. But I think Lewis winning was like literally the most amazing thing ever.
You have to remember that Lewis has not won since 2021.
Exactly. That's why it was like
Yeah, and this is his 9th Silverstone win. So he first race in a few years, got the most races at a singular GP. It was like a movie like win. It was perfect. It was just like it was nothing crazy happened, nothing like dirty happened during the race, no like crazy incidents. Oh, it was perfect. For him to win Silverstone in his last year at Mercedes was just
Was
it was
beautiful.
perfect.
Yeah.
his radio too, when he was like sobbing, crying. Oh my god, that was
And him
so.
waving the flag after.
Yeah,
Please.
the flag.
I was so
It
happy
was-
for him. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Right?
And then we move to Hungary,
Oof.
and we get into what is possibly the worst thing to come out of the 2024 season. Papaya rules.
I'm gonna sit
What
this
is
one out.
papaya
Thank you.
rules?
I'm gonna sit here and put my mic
I
down.
think Sarah should cover this one seeing as this.
Thank you,
is-
Cam. I was waiting for somebody to cue me in. You're
Get in
rolling,
here,
Cam.
Sarah.
I literally had to talk to my therapist about this. Like I brought it up in therapy.
That is real. That is so real.
That is me.
Last like 15, 10-ish laps or whatever, team radios start coming in telling Lando to give Oscar if he won. I was hype in the moment, and then slowly as like I don't know, I felt like my frontal lobe was developing as I was watching these last like 5 laps, and I came to the realization that this was absolutely going to ruin this boy's first win. Oh, and it did, and it discredited his first win to the max. The hate comments on social media were crazy. And so Oscar gets first win in his second ever season in Formula One. Everyone was mad at Oscar. Everyone was mad at Lando. More importantly, everyone was mad at McLaren. And then out of nowhere, Oscar pops up and is like, "By the way, I had a broken rib," which then furthers our theory of if you get badly injured, you will win your next race.
Yes. It was terrible.
And that's
I
my
mean,
spiel.
yes. 'Cause what? It was like the I don't remember how many laps there was. It was like 70 laps, I think, and it was within like
Yeah.
the second to last lap, or like it was like with 2 laps to
Lap.
go. It was so awkward watching this race. It was um Lando's engineer going, "Hey, you need to switch spots." Lando's like, why?" And then just kind of kept going back and forth, very awkward. And it was just like, I don't know what McLaren was doing. McLaren was very not smart this race, in my opinion.
If I was Lando
confused.
Norris and I got out of that car, I would have found Will Joseph and I would have gotten him. And I would have been like, get off radio while I'm racing. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry. He would
If
not
I
shut
was-
up. I'm sorry. He would not shut up every 5 seconds. Think about the team.
I'm sorry, I do not care. I think it was kind of like, I don't know. If I was Lando, I would have just won that race because I would have been so mad. I would have been so irritated.
No, I would have
'Cause-
totally ignored team orders. Absolutely, I would have. He thought Lando was gonna spray him. He thought Lando
Stop.
was gonna spray him.
Ooh,
And
stop.
he
Bring it up.
was spraying him.
Don't bring it up.
He literally said sorry in his
the
radio.
radio.
He apologized for winning.
I watch every single race with my father, and my dad is like a die-hard Lando Norris fan. I have never seen that man more upset at a race in my life. That man was pissed. I was like, oh my god, I actually thought he was gonna, I thought he was gonna write hate emails to McLaren. Like, he was
On
mad.
that Facebook group chat.
If you didn't know, Katie's father is always up in the Facebook group chats, always defending Lando with his sword and his bow and arrow and his spear. He's like the gladiator. He's Paul
Yep.
Mezcal, but for Lando Norris. And he was
Yep.
there. He was prepared. He was locked and loaded. You know, he like a dark room.
No,
And, like, typed in Facebook with one finger, like dads do, and then got on there and just started like spamming people.
oh
Beautiful.
my god. There are some races that'll end and he'll just be sitting there on his iPad and like everything will be quiet and then I'll just hear him start typing like extremely loud. I'm like, he's commenting on some post right now, just beefing everyone. It is the funniest thing. I like go on Facebook just to see what he commented on to like read through all the people beefing. It's so funny. Just to follow him and then get in there and just start beefing him on everything.
I'm gonna
just see
make a
him getting
fake fan
argued.
account called the George Russell fan account, and I'm gonna go on there. George Russell X Esteban Ocon. I'm gonna go on there and I'm gonna log in. And I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna say, Lando sucks. And I'm gonna DM your father, Lando sucks. And then I'm just going to rage bait your father for the rest of his life. We moved
That's
to
too good.
Belgium. First time we've ever seen in F1 history where every driver in the top 10 was a race winner. We've never had that before, which was super, super cool. Like, we've had a lot of historical moments this year, I'd say. This year is a big year for F1. And hopefully it doesn't follow with a really poor year next year. But in general, it's crazy. Max had that 10th place grid penalty because he took a new engine, which if anyone here is like new to the kind of rules, you have a certain amount of engines and power units and other things that you can put in your car. And if you surpass that amount over time, whether that be that your engine stops working too many times and stuff like that, you will get a penalty and sometimes a fine. George won.
He was called the Tire Whisperer. I remember watching this race and I was like, how is George like still going? Everybody else was doing 2 stops and he's pulling up winning this race like steadily with a 1 stop. And then he's celebrating his win, disqualified for an underweight car. Oh, awkward, very awkward. And then his teammate actually took the win. So, oof.
Double Lewis
Very
win this
awkward.
year.
Yes.
Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Double Lewis win under weird circumstances, but who cares? Because he still won.
You know, Zandvoort.
Last race that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Where's the freedom? Where is the
Now there-
freedom?
Here's our
it's
Amer-
gone.
we didn't have our American representation anymore, and that was depressing. Franco actually has a like really good personality, so I was like, you know what? It's okay. Logan's living his best life, and now we like the people's princess. So
I feel
Not
like the
complaining.
editors that week were all rounded up like cattle and put in a room with only the Noah Khan album and pictures of Daniel Ricciardo and Logan Sargent, and they were like here, and they made them
We-
do it.
No,
Pink
Noah
skies.
Kahan and Gracie Abrams and all of the F1 editors were in a room that
Yeah.
entire week because why was that my whole For You page?
in that poll, Max took the lead, and you're like, okay, yay, like Matt in his home race, like just like last year, and then the gap just never like increased. It was within 2 seconds. It was out of DRS for most of the time. Lando just kept maintaining it, and you're like, oh right, so I forgot that that car is fantastic, and Lando just kept catching up. Very stressful, honestly, just seeing it keep closing up. I mean, nothing else happened. Lando overtakes, wins the race.
by like 22 seconds.
Oh
And
yeah,
you
I
get
forgot
the
he had a
cooldown.
gap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he had
then
a
you get
gap.
the cooldown
Yeah.
one with Charles and Max, and Charles was like, so like, how far between? And then like Max says, and then you just see the look of like utter terror on Charles's face, like, oh crap.
It was one of
Bad.
my favorite races of this year.
So
And then
We go
had
to
Yeah, well-
Monza.
So
yes, Charles' second win, and he just decided to win the special races for him this year. He won in Ferrari's on Ferrari's home grounds, and then he won in his home ground. I was like, wow. So you're just picking the special races, and very main character moment for him. It was a good race. A picture that he took after with like the crowd.
iconic.
Perfect.
So good.
And all of the
will-
crowd singing the Italian national anthem too.
Oh,
Iconic.
And
Love
then
it.
we go to Baku, which is super
Skibbity,
crazy.
was it?
We find out about the Adrian Newey thing, which was a big thing,
Okay.
I think, for everybody. But for me, it was just like, whoa. Okay, this means a
Yeah.
lot for Aston Martin because it's Adrian Newey.
Oscar and Charles had their really good battle. No papaya rules in existence here. Just him and Charles had a race-long battle, and Oscar had like peak defensive skills.
Evan had his race ban.
Oh
we had
yeah.
Ollie in the car.
Mm-hmm.
So he scored points with Haas, which was like
So
No,
every
for
day of my
him.
life.
yes,
Yeah.
good for him.
Go to Singapore, which was one of the coolest races of the year. I love a good night race, and Singapore is
Yes.
just so good for that. And
Mhm.
just Lando domination once again. Are we shocked? No. Lando domination is crazy. And then something which I think was super sweet between Daniel and Max, which was Daniel taking away that fastest lap point from Lando. And Max was like, "Thank you, Daniel," on the radio. That
Wait. Pause. I can't do this right now.
The fact
Okay.
that it was like everyone was trying to make it seem
Oh my
like
God,
it
Gabby's
was Daniel
crashing out.
Presley's, like the commentators and everything, and like his interviews, and like you figured it was his last race, but no one would confirm or deny. It was so disrespectful.
And we go to Coda, which was super crazy and super fun. The battle between Max and Lando was wild. That whole situation that happened with Max and Lando going off and being like, he has to give up position, track limits, he has to give up position, this and that, this fight that went on. It was just kind of like, felt like one of the most unsportsmanlike races of the year. Because, like, first of all, Lando has said before that Coda is one of his favorite places to race. And so it kind of was just like, whoa, what's going on here? With the whole, just like, they were battling each other and trying to find loopholes and causing problems. It was just very, like, that
Messy.
felt like when you and your little brother are, like, beating each other. And then one of them, like, one of you's hurt extra hard. And then they call your mom. Like, that's how it kind of felt. It's like, what is going on?
It was messy. I honestly forgot about that. Like the whole like, Coda thing for some reason. I probably just blocked it out because it's icky. I was like, why is this happening? Why are we fighting so much? Let's just calm down, please.
And it wasn't even like they were fighting for the win.
They weren't. That's the kicker. It was just fighting, just to fight, and I hated it. I did not like it. But
Mexico!
Mexico was a great race. I love the track there. The
I
little
love Mexico.
area where is the track and then the crowd is on
Like
like both
yeah.
sides. Carlos gets his win, and this was just to stab you guys even more. This was Carlos's last race win in a Ferrari. In case you guys just need some more tears to be shed. I don't really know what else really kind of happened.
My mom was crying the other day. She came home and she was like, "I keep seeing Charles and Carlos edits and it's making me sad." And I was like, "Girl, get a grip." Lando called Max dangerous in Mexico.
I just remembered this. I remembered Max and Lando had the whole thing where Max gets 2 10-second penalties. Dare I say that was too many penalties? Yeah, but I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to be controversial. But I was like, right, so I almost had a brain aneurysm that like had me freaked out. It was
First of all, why did Max do that? Like, what was the point? What was the purpose here?
Could include Alpine in that with Brazil.
going on to Brazil now. My personal favorite race of the year.
I can agree.
Yeah, it was.
Honestly, even a
You-
Max, like super Max fan as Gabby is. I don't hate the man at all, but I'm like a McLaren fan, obviously.
Mhm.
But Brazil was very much so one of my favorite races because I just thought it was so like good.
It was
It was a
iconic.
great- yeah.
Because you kind of travel back to 2016 in Brazil. That's where he had one of his best races as a
Yeah.
rookie too. And he was like, this is where you kind of see like how good he is in the rain. And let me tell you, I was fully down the dumps that morning of the race. I was depressed. I was like, okay, this is gonna be like, whatever. Max starting P17. He qualified terribly and has a penalty. But the way that he just overtook everybody like nothing with no DRS. There were safety like I think one safety car, there was a red flag. I mean, yeah. But again, with Lando Max Brazil, you can't just have a safety car discount it overall cuz then you have the safety car giving the Alpines an advantage over everybody else. And then they end up P2 and P3 and that got them an insane amount of money, like millions of dollars. They rocketed up in the constructors. Esteban and Pierre have kind of a track record of not being the nicest people to each other. They don't really like each other a lot. And them being like super happy for each other at the end of the race was nice to see that. Yes.
Max did like a master class though on
Oh, yeah.
rain racing. He was like, "Hello, I am the best person here. Let me show you how it's done, losers." And then he like skated by.
It was nice.
Now we head to Las Vegas.
And
We
here is where everything really does come to a close for this whole. Max, what do you think about Lando? Lando, what do you think about Max's situation? It's finally over, or so we thought, until of course it came back. But George Russell won the race. Really crazy cool for him. That was awesome. And then it was Lewis right after him, so that Mercedes won too. It was apt to the weather. The weather had a big impact on this race. It was cold. Fans, track, cars, drivers, everyone was cold. It was just like a whole not optimal race for either the Red Bull or the McLaren. And then Max gets crowned for his 4th world championship, which was super awesome to see. I think Vegas is the best place you could have ever been crowned a world champion.
Yeah.
The partying is crazy cool.
I remember Mercedes specifically did so good here because their like car, their tires loves the cold weather. You could really see it here because they just fully dominated against everybody else.
We go to Qatar.
Only good thing to come out of this race was the George and Max beef. I, for one, loved this. So
Me
fun
too.
to watch.
The
So did
drama is so
Lando.
hot. So did Lando. Correct. I just heard someone say so did
Yes.
Lando. Yes, he loved it too. Tea was hot.
The tea was
Yeah,
Hyping.
Lando stop go penalty.
stop
Oh,
that penalty.
talking about times I've seen my dad mad. That was one of them.
That man
Second,
became Facebook. He was not on Facebook.
Yes.
He became
took
Facebook.
over. He took over.
Besides the whole Lando, like penalty, whatever, seeing the whole Max and George thing, where apparently, because you see, Max has instance with quite a few people. He's been in that room with the stewards. Know this. What in the world did George say to offend him? Because he has crashed with multiple people. He's like, oh yeah, I apologize to them. We apologize. We're fine now. George he has something against George now, and I think it's thing ever. Because seeing him come out and just air his business out, like he's like not the same person behind the cameras, all this stuff, and Max apparently said, "Oh hey, by the way, George, I'm taking my position back. I'm taking the lead in the first turn." And he did that. Very satisfying because I like George. By a controversy kind of picked in. Again, we did have a whole debrief about this. So if you want to see us go further in depth about this, we do have an episode out about the entire race.
And you can experience
was-
my rage and Katie's rage and a lot of people's
was
other
busy.
rage. You know.
We were mad, but
Yes.
it's okay.
Dobby was personally
Dead.
people saying like, okay, F1 be like, oh, like it's a battle between Ferrari and McLaren. Is it really? Because Ferrari did great that race in Abu Dhabi. Okay.
sorry.
Ferrari did
Turn that sideways immediately.
Because Ferrari did great in Abu Dhabi, but they still didn't have enough. And people just saying like, oh yeah, like it's a battle. It's like
Was
Max and Lando saying it's a battle. It was just like, I don't know, it was interesting. But What even in this race? There was a lot of penalties, I feel like.
Yeah,
Um,
Oscar and
Oscar.
that,
Yeah.
which that almost sent me into a crash.
Oh yeah. Oscar had another incident with
And
Franco.
Oscar, Franco! Not his best moment, guys. He's having an off day.
No, seeing Valtteri retire, seeing guys,
Sorry.
what is happening
Me
here?
and Katie feel like Daniel and Lando in that one interview.
Looking
'Cause
up
I
at
turned my
Layla and she
hat-
has something.
Because I turned my hat and then I looked, like, I was looking at Katie when I did this, so it's funny that she was the one who started laughing. I just went. And then.
I'm sorry. I'm down.
I'm sorry.
I was kind of talking about how we were all kind of crashing out because Valtteri retired, Frank retired, Checo retired, everybody who, well, I don't know, but I mean, guys,
It's so
I'm
hard not to look at her, and then I just see her like struggling not to laugh at the top corner.
Anybody else have any intakes? 'Cause
I'm sorry.
it was depressing. The entire podium was depressing. Everybody was depressed. Everybody left. Lando wins. Oh, Lewis overtook George in the last lap to take P4. Very
Drama.
sad. Drama. That was honestly like really it. I mean,
I think the most interesting part was Charles from
oh
P
yeah.
like 16, 17.
P19
Yeah.
all the way to P3.
He qualified bad and he had a penalty. So
Yeah.
my boy started from like the back. And I think him fighting his way up to like what, P3 it was?
P3,
Yeah, it was-
and
Yes.
then Lewis fought P16,
Really impressive.
P4. So
Yeah.
We see
Both
the
of them
future
were
teammates.
really impressive.
Future
No, for sure,
teammates
yeah.
are foreshadowing. I'm like actually dying to see them next year together.
Yeah.
It's
I
gonna be
know.
so
I'm so
cute seeing the
excited.
dogs are together.
that sums up the 2024 Formula One season.
We did it,
It was,
guys.
it was a hard season to survive, but it was
Yeah.
also one of the most memorable seasons. So, I mean, yeah.
I think that's the end of our episode. We'll see you guys next time. I'm gonna take Katie to my penthouse and freak it. And we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.